have a question that was left in the comments. Resting in awareness equals spiritual bypassing, comma, have a nice day. So I've been meaning to make a video on spiritual bypassing, titled Spiritual Bypassing 101. So this is a prime opportunity to address what is meant by spiritual bypassing. In the New Age spiritual culture, there is the definition of spiritual bypassing as not dealing with, not acknowledging, not facing the shadow of our psychosomatic system. And that n not facing or not willing to look at that material can usually take the form of retreating from circumstances and interactions so that we stay quietly abiding as a fragile piece that is dependent upon conditions, such as being quietly at home and never meeting anyone. Or it can occur as a result of understanding an aspect of the non-dual teaching, which is that awareness is independent of the content of experience, but instead of really directly validating that understanding in experience and only establishing it in experience, there is an attempt to wash a veneer of conceptual abstraction about non-duality on top of these uncomfortable sensations or difficult circumstances or addictive behaviors. And in so doing, we don't come from the true experience of ourself as infinite, eternal reality. We instead subliminally or subtly or overtly believe that we are an entity that's separate from these uncomfortable sensations and that we're pushing them down and placing on top this idea about non-duality. But that idea is only an intellectualized abstraction. It's not coming from direct experience. So one can have a belief about the non-dual nature of reality, but beliefs are useless when it comes to revealing the true nature of reality in experience. It's only that experience that will encompass and heal and resolve those residues of seeking, longing, resisting the content of experience from the perspective of a separate entity. So experience is fundamental to this liberation. We realize our already liberated, already free condition. So from this experience of being the infinite, eternal reality of being, we are already the substance of everything. So there is no attempt to seek ourself. We are already ourself. There is no longing for ourself. We are already ourself. There is no resisting anything that appears because we experience that we are the substance of everything. So it is this experience that is not a bypass. It is the ultimate spirit or spiritual understanding or illumination, but it is not a bypass. Infinite reality cannot bypass anything. So when we are taking our stand naturally as this infinite presence of being, then whatever arises, if it's some old residue of the egoic identity or the previous belief in being a separate entity, then we welcome that because we recognize that the very substance of that appearance is ourself, is this ever peaceful, ever complete, unconditional love of being. So if it's a sensation or an energy that's moving and it has a dynamism towards some objective, then we recognize the concept of there being an objective that the mind believes will produce happiness, produce completeness, or give us enlightenment. And we recognize the dynamism of the sensation, or perhaps the discomfort of the sensation on the surface. And we see that all of that is appearing within and is made of the infinite awareness that we are. So we just allow all of that movement to flow through us, and it is experienced for what it is, which is always just raw energy. It is only from the point of view of the mind that it is conceptualized to be going somewhere. In reality, its substance is not going anywhere. So the longing or the seeking that arises is a dynamism, perhaps of sensation and thought. All of that movement is made of the presence of reality, which is infinite. There is no outside of itself for it to go to. There is no where other than itself for it to go to. So all of this movement fundamentally is not going anywhere. It's going where it came from. So if we understand that when all of these residues of thought and sensation arise, we experience them as made of eternity. And they just naturally flow through us and get transformed into a sense of relaxation, expansion, dissipation, release into the surrounding field and space of awareness that we already are. So in this way, we're not bypassing any form that arises. We're recognizing our transcendental condition. We're recognizing our independence. We're recognizing our freedom, and that we're not identified or defined by this content, this movement. Another form of spiritual bypassing would be to believe that we are an entity that needs to work on our shadow, that needs to work on the content of our mind or the movements in our body, the energies that appear, to control them, to make them appear a particular way in order for us to be at peace or to be established in our true nature. For the reality of being, it is already itself. It is already established as itself. So no manipulation of the content of our mind, of the appearance of the body, will bring about the establishment of ourself in ourself as we essentially are. So if we believe that we need to work on our shadow and make great efforts to bring up the shadow in us, to purge it, to release it, to get rid of it. We are, whether we acknowledge it or not, taking ourselves to be a separate entity that is apart from this shadow material and that wants to get rid of it. For ourself, this infinite reality of awareness, there is no desire to get rid of anything. There is no resistance to anything. So all of this stuff can come up in its own time. Yes, we can cooperate with that bringing up, but there's a difference between lovingly cooperating from the stand of ourself being already complete, already at peace, already love, and taking ourself to be an entity that is separate from the shadow, separate from our psychological material, and that needs to manipulate it in order to bring about peace, bring about completeness, bring about the knowing of our true nature as we are. So, the most powerful question in this case, if we find ourselves trying to manipulate the content of our mind or the movements of the body to bring about peace, to bring about the absolute completeness and fulfillment of our essential reality, then we can ask ourselves, who is it that is trying to manipulate the mind? Who is it that wants to acquire peace, fulfillment, completeness? And if we look, we will find that our being is not looking to manipulate the mind to bring about peace. It is already peace. It is already this imperturbable presence. Likewise, it is not looking to manipulate the mind or the body in order to bring about the happiness, which is completeness, fulfillment. For that is the nature of our being already. We will see in every occasion, if we're thorough in this investigation, that it is an imaginary self that is in conflict with the shadow. And a word about bringing up shadow material or psychological trauma. If we believe I have a shadow or I have psychological trauma, we have mistaken ourselves for a limited, separate, personal entity. For the I that is being referred to is identified with something limited, trauma, psychology, or a shadow. The true I that we always are is this infinite awareness that is aware of all of that. So there can be on this path an attempt to improve our personality or to heal traumas by digging for them or by excessively disciplining our personality to make it adhere to specific rules that we've conditioned our mind to believe are necessary for appeasement by the culture, approval by the culture. So instead of trying to improve our personality or discipline the mind in any way, if we just recognize experientially the nature of our essential being, which is already imperturbable peace, unconditional love, the complete fulfillment of being infinite, it is already immeasurable intelligence. It is the intelligence giving rise to everything that exists. And it is intrinsically beautiful. For that is what this manifestation is a display of, the beauty of being. Then the nature of our being will spontaneously, automatically, and effortlessly manifest itself lucidly in our thoughts, in our sensations, in our feelings, in our perceptions, in our actions, in our behaviors, in our speech. Reality is by nature efficient, harmonious. It naturally expresses itself when the belief of itself being limited has been falsified or is not apparent. So just go for the ultimate truth. And this might be interpreted, this statement, go for the ultimate truth, as spiritual bypassing. It can be interpreted that way. But what I'm suggesting is bypass all of the work on psychological trauma, shadow material, and just go straight to the nature of our being. Just go to our being and experience that our being is already free of all of that. So we're already at and as everything the mind has been searching for. The mind has been searching for ultimate satiation, which is completeness, fulfillment. And that is already the case for ourselves. So just establish clearly the nature of ourself, this awareness, aware of these words now, and be free immediately of all shadow material, all psychological trauma. And if there are any residues that appear in our energy system as thoughts, as sensations, as pulses of vibration, then if we're knowing ourselves as we truly are, we will see that for what it is, just a flow of energy that is releasing. It will be releasing if it's coming up, and if we're feeling and knowing ourselves as the space in which it appears, it will be releasing gradually or dramatically and swiftly. Who knows? It will not be releasing if we are believing ourselves to be a separate entity that is having a relationship with the shadow material or the psychological trauma. Then there is a conflict because there is duality and relationship, subject-object interaction. There is a friction inevitably. The only way to allay and dissolve this friction is to recognize the substance out of which that subject-object relationship is conceived. And that is this infinite, eternal presence of awareness. So just bypass all of that work on psychological trauma and shadow material and just go to the presence of our being, which is already transcendental to all of that, already not limited by any of that.